Senator Watt.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the presentation today. And actually, and I want to thank you and your staff. I've had some other questions and asked for some help understanding the budget and the algorithms.
That's what we're here for.
No, and it's really been fantastic. They've given me terrific insight on everything, and I love a formula. So
So do we.
It's kind of great. And specifically, I was particularly interested in the way that the formulas are constructed as far as all the independent factors and the latencies involved in the data acquisition. And particularly as we look at some of the wealth formulas, I know that where that data comes from, there's a great deal of latency involved. So what we see is property values right now that are driving budget items this year. Next year, those property values could be radically different. So based on what it is right now. But when we talk about jobs lost in the budget, are we talking about jobs that have been privatized, shifted from being a government employee to a contract employee? Are we talking about vacancies that have been struck and not filled? Or are we talking about people who have been laid off or furloughed?
Yes.
All of the above.
Nobody's been laid off and furloughed in this budget.
Okay, so when we say job loss, no one's actually lost a job.
Well, no, that's not true.
We've taken away. No, and please, I'm just trying to understand this.
Yeah, no, we can. Actually, there's a nice little chart in the briefing document itself.
Page 28.
Page 28, which just walks you through the different types of transactions that are reflected in the budget. And what we count in the budget isn't people, it's positions. Okay, some of them have people in them, some of them don't. Some of the ones that don't are funded such that they could be filled, and others of them are in excess of what the department's been allocated in salaries to ever fill. Okay, but they're just sitting there, as we call them, vacant. But if you look at the top, the governor is eliminating 330 positions. Oh, no, that's the ads.
Those are the ads.
That's the ads. Those are the new positions that are authorized in this budget. Usually they will assume that they'll be recruited early in the fiscal year, and there's enough money to fund them for maybe 3/4 of a year, unless there's some reason to think they're going to start earlier. And then we come to the abolitions, 226. 129 is in the health department, and most of those are filled positions. These are people whose job is authorized in the current year's budget, but will not be authorized come July 1st. So they will be gone from the state payroll. Now, possibly a contractor will reemploy them, but because the department believes that this privatization will save them $2.5 million a year, they are not going to be hiring as many people as are working there now, and the terms of their employment will necessarily be less.
Okay, so like in the case of this 129, we're talking about contract employees.
No, we're talking about real employees, regular employees with pensions and health insurance.
Everyone's a real employee. Don't be a hater.
Well,
everyone's an employee.
Well, contract employees come and go. I mean, you have put them on a contract. You should be putting them on a contract because their requirement is temporary.
Right.
Now, that is not actually what happens because you can hire a contract employee without going through the same rigmarole as you have
I get
to
it.
hire
I'm one
a
of
regular
them.
employee.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do this for the federal government, so
All right.
I get
So
it.
you've been there.
Okay. So, but part of the reason that we do it, and at least the commanders down at NavAir do it, is that the notion that we have a body of work that's only going to be temporary. And we know that we're going to do this big program, so we have this many guys, but we need to staff up for a while. But when that's done, when we hit that milestone,
bye-bye.
we don't need those people, and we make them contractors so that we can release them when the time goes by. It gives the business manager an opportunity to make fairly fluid decisions.
That's right.
And everyone knows that, hey, you work as a contractor and you get paid a little extra because there's a certain amount of risk that you're not going to be employed.
Yeah.
If you want the check forever, then go get your GS-13 and you take what you get. So I understand that game. So my question is with these, are these principally that kind of, are they contracting jobs and positions that we've decided that we no longer require?
All of the abolished positions here are full-time, regular state employees.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That was
Right.
That was the information I was looking for.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. That helps a lot.
Pins, I think, is part of the.
Well, they're not, some of them may be empty, but.
Some are empty, some
But some are
not.
real people who are
Right.
inhabiting
Oh.
those jobs actively.
Okay. So,
But here's the thing.
Some of these are empty seats that we're just eliminating.
Correct.
Some of these are actual full-time state
Correct.
employees.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
All right,
Thank you.
now stay on page 28 for a minute, though, because there's
Sure.
something magical there.
Please.
And that is, they're abolishing 226 positions in the budget, showing up as not being in every program that is affected. On top of that, there is a section in the bill which authorizes the governor to abolish 657 additional positions. But we don't, and take $20 million out of the agency's budgets, general funds. But the magic is that you don't know where it's coming from, either the dollars or the pins, but you're being asked to authorize a budget without knowing what's in it as relates to these positions.
So these
Now
are the additional 650 that the
Yeah.
governor's asking.
Yeah.
These, okay, and again, don't know the answer. About how many full-time regular state employees do we have total?
80,000,
Okay, so
including the universities. 50,000 if we throw out the universities.
all right. So out of 80,000, the governor is asking for a generic authority to reduce the staff by 650.
That's right.
Okay, got it. All right, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Now, the issue is that you're being asked to approve a budget without knowing where it's coming from. One of the obligations of the governor is to send you a complete plan of spending. I think you'd have to give him an incomplete on this particular element. But this is not the first time such things have appeared in budgets.
Okay, all right.
You have one
Thanks.
more?
That was, yes, sir, just a little bit. That was actually, it was very informative, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. I got to tell you, the whole structural gap thing is difficult for me to really wrap my head around. I honestly, I just don't quite get it, and I've been trying for a long time. And we've been talking about, do we want to spend more or less? Do we want to borrow more or less? And that's sort of the way that I think of it. What is the right path out? I mean, I'm very glad that we are reducing the mythical structural gap, and we're getting there, and I'm real excited about that. But
Well, there are
if it's gonna pop up again in a couple of years, what's the right path for us to avoid that? Do we simply spend less in the operating budget, or do we simply borrow less in the capital budget? What's the right path?
There are three paths, and they can each be used in some proportion. One is, of course, to reduce your debt load. You either
Retire
call
debt?
it-
Okay.
use your cash to substitute for authorizing debt.
Okay.
That's one approach. The other two influences are simply the implied growth rates of your revenues and your spending. If you're even and they move together, well, then you don't have a structural problem. Your revenues and spending are moving roughly in tandem. However, if your spending, as it does, tends to grow at 5%, and your revenues tend to grow at 4%, over time, there will be a gap. Now, we are at a point now where our revenues are actually above our spending. But given the differing trajectories, that excess of revenue overspending will diminish over time and eventually be overtaken.
So
So
flatten
you
the rate
either-
of growth in the spending.
So you slow spending, or you create a more sprightly revenue base. Doesn't necessarily mean more revenues, but the mix could be changed to things which have a better likelihood of increasing over time. Some revenues are like a property tax grows very slowly, but it's very reliable. An income tax goes up and it goes down. So you have to just look at it. One of the areas where you might make some trade-offs is in the sales tax, taxing services as opposed to goods, and increase the tax on services and reduce the rate on overall, and that could be a neutral. But overall, the tax base may grow faster than it would if you stay with our current narrow base.
Okay, so
But you can go on either end. You can go on the revenue side, you can go on the spending side, or
you got a third one? Or was that the third one?
well,
I'm taking notes. I really am.
I don't know. But those are really your options. Working with debt really is just working on your spending line, because your spending is on debt service.
Okay, so retire the debt, and this is Budget 101 for Budget for Dummies. Hang with me. Retire the debt, slow spending, or broaden the tax base.
Change your revenue base to one that grows faster. Yeah, and that's really the game. And we haven't been playing it outstandingly, but there's always opportunities.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate the time.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr.